welcome to Paperback Flicks.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another Paperback Flicks. I am Ruth Craddock. I'm here with
Rae Davidson.
Rae Davison. Lovely as always. And today we're talking about The Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, the novel versus the many film adaptations and TV adaptations out there. And yeah, so Rae, let's go to you. What have you read the book before now?
Um, I've heard it kind of narrated, read before. Like it was like a play or something when I was in elementary school that essentially the narrator was reading the book as people acted it out.
Hmm.
But I had never read it before.
Oh, okay. Have you read any Dickens books in general?
Yes. So I know I read Bleak House,
Okay.
which was a rough one.
It's in the name.
But yeah.
I am a Dickens fan. I haven't read everything, but read a good portion of his work. This is my first time reading Christmas Carol, so this was fun. Um, of course, I've known the story and grown up with it in different film adaptations and
Mhm.
just little picture books and stuff. So I know the story, but this was interesting. Actually, I was listening to it on audiobook, of course, and it was read by Tim Curry.
Oh.
So I was like, that's a wonderful narrator for this story. And it was fun. It was definitely interesting. What did you think of the book?
So I actually liked it. I put some notes in that I've talked about in other books that I don't like when like the narrator puts their own stuff in. And I didn't mind it in this one because for me it felt like someone was telling me the story. Do you know what I mean? Like all of the little narrator's little bits, like even the beginning that when he's talking about Marley was dead to begin with. He's like, I need to tell you this so the rest of the story makes sense.
Yeah,
Like it kind of reminded me of like the Princess Bride when the grandpa interrupts and he's like, she doesn't die here. Like it felt like that.
yeah, yeah. If you like a narrator with a voice or a writer that you can feel the writer themselves within the story, then you're gonna love Dickens. If you don't want the author to like be like not visible, but like audible, like you don't want to feel the presence of the author,
Mhm.
then you're gonna hate it.
Yeah.
And I, for one, prefer feeling the author. I want them to take me on a joyride. I want them to tell me what the story is. And like I don't like this whole the author needs to butt out and not give their opinions. So I'm like, that's half the point of writing is to share your view of the world, your opinions to get a point across, not
Yeah.
just tell a story.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like the author kind of gets in his own way, gets in the way of their own story,
Hmm.
maybe, but not in this one. Not I don't remember it in other Dickens that I've read, and this is the same where I appreciated all of his little inserts.
Mm-hmm.
There's one, my favorite one was towards the end, um, when he's trying to get dressed, when Scrooge is trying to get dressed, and he's like, oh, I don't know what to do. And he uses the word to describe how he's putting on his socks, and he says that he makes a, I might mess this up. I don't know how to actually pronounce it, but I think it's Leia Cohen or something like that of his socks. And so I looked it up. Like I'm like, what is he talking about? And it's this like famous statue. It's Roman or Greek statue of a man and his sons wrestling with these giant snakes
Oh, so he
that
rests
like some deity has like
stock
sent
on his,
snakes after him.
yeah,
And so, like, once you know that, like, oh, so it's like he's like wrestling with snakes trying to put his socks on, like
yeah,
things
mhm,
like that, that I just appreciate that he inserted these little things. Like he
yeah,
expects you to just know them. Like he's like, you'll know it, and if you don't know it, you'll figure it out,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. Agreed. I do love I love that beginning. Like Marley was dead to begin with. It is a
Mhm.
very strong beginning and it sets a tone right away. Um, it is interesting like how much more detail Dickens puts into things. And like he goes into great detail about the city and like Scrooge's office and his bedchambers and like everything. And it felt like for me, it made me feel like I'm there.
Mhm.
Even with there's a whole bunch of descriptions about the weather and like the the atmosphere of London, like it helps. I feel like it makes me feel like I'm there.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, he has a good way. I know I probably have mentioned it before, and I'm sure we'll mention it again, that sometimes I get bored with that. 7 pages of describing the road, move on, man. Like, but he does like all of his description, like it's always setting the mood and it's giving you another layer. And when he's talking about
Mhm.
how it's cold and it's dark, and Scrooge likes the cold and he likes the dark because that means saving money or whatever, like it all at like as cold and as dreary as I have just set this up, he somehow makes you colder just by being in your presence. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
the every one of his descriptions and all of the flowery language or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it all like evokes like an understanding that you feel colder or you feel like you're there. You can almost smell the soot in the air or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
which is awesome. That's what you want.
Exactly, exactly. Well, like there's a lot of people nowadays that like they want to have as little description as possible. And like my thing is if you don't have much description, it's essentially a screenplay, not a book. And it's not
Yeah.
very interesting. A screenplay can get away with that because we're going to visually see it on screen. That gives them room to interpret how they're going to like do that in film.
Mhm.
But you're creating the film in your head. So in a book, if you don't have any descriptions of the atmosphere or the environment, the people, it feels very like thin, like
Mhm.
not very deep, and you don't get pulled in. At least for me, if there's not any atmosphere, then I have a hard time really feeling like it's real, even though of
Right.
course it's not real. It's a fictitious story that we're reading. But like I want to be in that world. And if you can't draw me in with like the descriptions and make me feel like it's a real place, then you're wasting my time.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like I don't care about characters if their world is so one-dimensional or two-dimensional. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't care about the character that's like, all right, so he's in London. Let's get to the story. Like,
Oh, okay. Well,
okay.
especially with this story and how like it's set in a certain time, um, it helps to know what London was like at that time,
Hmm.
the part of London that he's in, the kind of person that he is, the kind of place that he grew up in, you know, all these things. It helps to know these things because it says more about them. And that's one of the things I like about period pieces is that it feels so much more immersed in a world
Hmm.
because nothing's taken for granted that you just know about it because they have to describe the way things were done then and how everything was. They
Yeah.
have to describe the language and it really transports you to another place and time when it's done right. But so when people modernize it, it's fine. I've seen lots of modernized versions of the story, and it can work. It can be all right. I mean, we'll get to talking movies in a little bit, but I feel like this story is best when it's kept at its core to the era that it was written in
Yeah.
and to that time because it gives it more of just a gothic feel. It makes it feel more lived in and more like historic. Like, I don't
Right.
know if that makes sense. Like, it feels almost like it's history, even though it's not. Even though we know
Yeah.
it's fiction, when it's told in that time frame, in that era, the way Dickens meant it to be told, it feels just more lived in and just more alive.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that there is a book that's kind of a modern adaptation that's newer. I think it was just released this year. but it's called Christmas Carol with a K because
Oh,
it's her name is Carol, and she's not like greedy, stingy, but she's like the modern woman. She can have it all. She has the kids and she's got the career and blah blah blah. And she is it's the same essential concept. She's sacrificing what's most important, what should be most valuable, the wealth of the soul, right? Her
yeah.
children and whatever, for like climbing that corporate ladder or whatever. And I do appreciate that very like if it was just a billionaire, today's the modern adaptations that are like a billionaire is going to have to learn how to love. And you're like, great, that's great. But I'm not a billionaire and I'm not in a position to, I'm not a modern day Scrooge or whatever.
Hmm.
But I can identify with trying to climb the ladder at work and trying to get to all my kids' productions and,
Hmm.
making sure that I do all the things and I don't have time to do the most important things. Like I can get that. And so that's the one modern adaptation that I'm actually like, that speaks to me. A lot of the time, modern adaptations, you lose kind of the soul of the story,
Hmm.
and it kind of dilutes its purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah,
agreed. So do you want to go straight into movies?
sure.
Sure. So do we have any more we want to say about the book?
Um, just that it's straight out the gate, it's worth reading. It's worth reading to your kids. It's worth bringing up with your teenagers. It's worth reading yourself and actually knowing, like actually seeing what parts hit you hard, because the parts that affected me most might not affect other people in that same way. Like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, it's worth everyone having in their minds as far as I'm concerned.
Well, one of the interesting things I noticed were the differences, what was in the book and versus what was in most adaptations have. Um, I did watch, so I told myself I wasn't going to watch the Jim Carrey like animation one, but my son Ethan's like, well, I've never watched it. So he's like, let's watch it. I'm like, okay. And wow, that's a fever dream. The fever dream. It's just like, okay. But there's some things they did in that are actually in the book that most adaptations don't do.
Oh.
And so one of the things being that when he goes to the Christmas future, he asks to see somebody who has joy over his, or, has positive feelings about him and, at his death. And it was these people that owed him a huge debt.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, now we don't have to pay it, or at least not for a while. And our next creditor most likely to be far more forgiving than Scrooge was. And so
Mm-hmm.
they're all thrilled to find out he died. And, that is pretty poignant to be like, the only people that are happy about you at all or feel anything positive about you are people who are happy you're dead.
Yeah.
And that's like, wow. So there's that. Another thing they did in like the Christmas present, they showed the girl that he'd had the relationship with, that he'd almost married. They
Mm-hmm.
showed her in, in the present with her husband and with their daughter, and just like they had all these other kids, but their oldest daughter, there was just a sweetness about her. And they talked about how Scrooge would have loved to have had a daughter like that. He would
Mm-hmm.
have loved to have had the opportunity to be a parent to somebody like that. And to sort of show this is what she went on to do. This is who she went on to marry. And, this is the life she had. And this is something he could have had if he'd been willing to settle down and stop worrying about money, 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 and having enough. Anyways, I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, so I didn't watch the Jim Carrey one, but I did watch one from 1984.
Wow.
Um,
The
that
year after
actually I
we
had
were
seen.
born.
What's that?
The year after we were born. As old
Which
as us.
I had seen before, but I didn't remember it until I was watching it. And the Ghost of Christmas Present, I'm like, oh, I know this guy. Like, then I realized I had seen it. But they have those spots in there too, which
Oh,
I also appreciated. And they had the one part I did not like it in the book, and I liked it even less actually seeing it on film, was when Christmas Present opens his robes and he's got those two like gnarly kids that are ignorance and want.
yeah.
I didn't really get it. I didn't get like I got the message, but the way it was delivered was super weird.
Felt a little
And then
excessive.
yeah, and then like it felt like it didn't fit in the rest of the story. And then I thought, well, maybe if it's in a movie, like maybe I'll get it better. I did not. Like when they did that, I'm like, they could have cut that scene.
Yeah, that was in the Jim Carrey one too. And like that part felt like, yeah, you don't really need that part. And I agree. That was probably my least favorite thing in the book was that aspect. Um, in Scrooge, the Bill Murray version, modern
Hmm.
adaptation, that's probably my favorite modern adaptation. I'm a Bill Murray fan, so I'm going to love just about everything he does. I hate the movie What About Bob, but that's because I, I identify with the Richard Dreyfuss character. So I that movie drives me insane. So it's the one movie that I know of that's Bill Murray that I hate.
See,
But
it drives me insane, and I still watch it every time people want to watch it.
no, I can't do it. It's so painful. Ugh. Anyways, but I love Scrooge, and that's something
Hmm.
I have to watch every year. I grew up with that. And
Hmm.
one of the things they did, they just showed him open up his robe, and he shows like the tortured souls inside his rib cage, and you go, oh. And he's like, did our prop guy do that to you, or whatever? And
Yeah.
anyways, that one was funny because interesting about that adaptation is that they're putting on the Christmas Carol as a live TV show
Hmm.
in the movie itself, and then he goes through the Christmas Carol situation in his real life.
Right.
I like that. I thought it was fun having a show within a show.
Hmm.
I love those kind of movies where there's like a play within a play or so on and
Yeah.
so forth. And that was fun. And I appreciated like all the people they used for the ghost and like how they like oh I forget her name. Is it Bernadette Peters that
In
played
Scrooge?
in Scrooge that
Yeah,
plays
yeah.
the Christmas present or she Christmas past?
Yeah, the first one. Yeah.
Yes, okay. She was oh yeah, yes, she's present. She was hilarious. I loved her. And the whole constant her beating the crap out of him. And like the whole he's trying to defend himself and she keeps like knocking him down anyways. And she was delightful. I
So
love the
Bernadette Peters is one of my favorites.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I like everything she's done. So she's hilarious. Um and yeah, I liked everything about that one. But then again, I'm very nostalgic for that one.
Hmm.
Would if I'd seen it for the first time now, would I like it as much as I do? I don't know. But I grew up with it and I like Bill Murray. So
Yeah.
that one's fun. And I like the whole aspect of him being a TV producer. And I like the whole aspect in that story they're talking about like you didn't really live a life, you just watched television. And your life
Hmm.
became about television. And now you're a TV exec, president, whatever, president of a TV studio, and it's still only thing in your life is TV.
Right.
And I was
Well,
like,
and the shallow part of it too. Like it again, like it was soulless for him. Like
yeah,
he kind of lived his whole life kind of milk toast. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That was funny. He's like, I did stuff. There was this girl, beautiful hair, and we're running down the hill. We're like, no, that was little house on the prairie. I was like, was the homecoming episode? Yeah, the homecoming episode of Little House on the Prairie. You didn't do nothing. Like garden slugs got more to life than you. And anyways, so I don't I like that one. It was funny. Um, what other adaptations did you watch?
So so
Knowing you, there were several.
there were several. So as far as TV shows goes, I watched the Wishbone episode because of course I did.
Of course.
because it's Wishbone. Which again, it's always oversimplified and silly,
Mm-hmm.
but it gets the main point across, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and then we watched the Flintstones, and I did not like it. Ugh, I don't really like the Flintstones anyway, but
I like it in general, but I have not seen that. I've not
I
seen.
didn't like it.
Okay.
Um, I was going to watch the Doctor Who and the Roswell episodes because I know that they have them. I couldn't find them, so I just
Oh,
didn't.
okay.
But
Ro
um
Roswell, as in like the.
the Aliens TV
Yeah,
show,
I
yeah.
didn't know they did a a Scrooge episode.
Yeah, they did a Christmas Carol-y episode.
Oh,
Um
I must have missed that one because I
it,
like
it
watching.
was a little bit trippy. I've seen it a long time ago. I couldn't find it though to rewatch it now. But and then my favorite of the TV shows that we watched was Animaniacs. Have you ever
I
seen the
love
Animaniacs?
Animaniacs. I think I saw that one.
I love it. Like I used to sing the songs to the girls all the time and they were like, "You're so weird." And so I would show them like little like YouTube clips of them. And
Hmm.
then I'm like, "I'm doing Christmas Carol. We're watching that episode."
I'm gonna have to go watch that again because like I don't really forgot about it until you mentioned it. And you're right. I think I saw that one.
Yep, I loved it.
Animaniacs is great. Great.
But and then of course the movie that I feel like we're probably going to focus on for a while is the Muppet one. To me, the 1984 is like as close to the book as I have ever seen.
Okay.
And then the Muppet movie, the Muppet Christmas Carol
Hmm.
is hands down easily, even after seeing all these others, my favorite. If you never see any other one, see this one.
Yeah, and I think it's probably the best of all the Muppet movies too. I
Me
mean,
too.
I love Muppets in general, but they have some other movies that are like, yeah, it's okay. But then there are others that are really amazing. And this one's the best.
Yes.
I think this
Agreed.
was like I feel like they did a really good job of finding the right characters to fit the people in the story.
Yeah.
And I love seeing certain characters in certain places. Like I love the addition of the rats as
Yes.
bookkeepers with Kermit.
Yeah.
That whole thing about, you know, like, oh, we're too cold. Can we use some more coal? And he's all, um,
How would you like to be unemployed?
oh, and they're like, oh, heat wave, woo!
Yeah.
And
I'm on an island in the
I
sun.
think that all the
I
time,
love it.
all the time. And that part's funny. I love Rizzo the Rat and
Hmm.
Gonzo as the narrators. I love Gonzo as Charles Dickens.
Yes.
I love Gonzo.
So
I love him.
my kids, because I watched it just myself because I love it. And like the day that we decided to do this, or maybe the next day or whatever, I'm like, I'm watching that right now. But before I read the book, I don't even care. But when I watched it again with the girls, um, the part where they like get Rizzo and Gonzo, they get in a bit of a fight or something. I don't remember what it is, but at one point Gonzo's like, "Oh my gosh, you're annoying." He says something, and Rizzo kisses his nose. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and just gives a little kiss on the nose. My girls laughed so hard. They were like, "Oh my gosh, that's so funny." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's not in the actual book." And they're like, "Oh."
I know. That's
He
some,
didn't have it. Like they thought that like Charles Dickens had narrated in a sidekick, Sherlock Holmes and Watson or whatever, like,
yeah, that
and
kind
I'm like, no.
no,
They
that
also were freaked out when there was only one Marley.
they're like only one Marley. Well,
Yeah,
I love that addition too, of having it be two Marleys. Not
yeah,
only because I love the hecklers, they're some of my favorite Muppets, but also because you get to have not just Jacob, but Robert Marley.
yeah.
It's hilarious. I had to point out, I had to explain why this was funny to my kids. I'm like, because of the reggae singer, Bob Marley. So that's pretty funny. They're like, oh,
Robert, yeah,
I get it. Or like, yeah, it's funny. So Jacob and Robert Marley.
right.
And that part was fantastic. I love the way they did that
Yeah.
with,
It was just that little bit of scary, but still playful and Muppety enough
mm-hmm,
and carried the story through. Um what was it? There was another one that was a musical that you were talking about, like all of the songs just didn't fit.
Mm,
And like they just kind of like stop the show, let's sing a song, back to the show. I don't remember what one that was,
yeah.
but this one, all of the songs work so well. They're all memorable.
Mm-hmm.
Every time another song comes on, it's my favorite song, my favorite song.
Well, that is
Except,
fun.
did you have an overall favorite song? Because I did find one that I liked more than the others.
Um, the After all, there's only one more sleep till Christmas is probably our favorite.
So that was, I thought that was until I heard enough, but I do love that song very much. But Christmas Presents song, the Anywhere That You Find Love, or
Yeah,
it feels
that's
like Christmas.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, I love that song. I was like, this song hits all the notes. If you're religious, you feel the Christ of it all. If
mm,
you're not religious and you just want the good feelings of togetherness, you feel that. If you're like Scrooge, like in the as they're singing, like you see Scrooge like dancing around. He wants to be the good guy. He wants to be the guy that like plays you the word games with you or whatever. You see that in him as Christmas Present is singing, and he does the weird like
yeah,
dance, the I don't know how to express my joy, but I'm feeling it kind of dance.
yeah,
I'm like, this is it. This is the message of the whole movie or the whole story.
yeah, yeah. As far as songs go, so I remember always seeing this movie. Um, I guess there's a theatrical version and then there's the video version,
Hmm.
and there's another song in the theatrical version. And I thought that was always there until we got the DVD. Sorry. Until I got the DVD and then I saw that there was two different options. I was like, what? So I watched the video one, and I was like, oh my gosh, the whole song with the girl breaking up with him was gone. And I was like, I love that song. And
I
so they
didn't know that
watched
was
it.
a song.
Oh my gosh, you gotta watch that. I should have said something before. But
Well,
yeah,
now I'll have to find it.
yeah. So watching it without it, when you've seen it with the song, that scene just feels so empty and hollow. But she
Oh,
had a song, and she was talking about how it was almost love, it was almost always, and like it's a great song, and it's a great moment because you feel him trying to like, well, we can make this work, but she keeps telling him, no, you're not willing to do it, and then finally she's singing the song at one point, she's looking away, and then when she looks back, he left. And like modern day Scrooge is sitting there going like, what are you doing? And he's just bawling in tears and like you're feeling it because it's just, and then he sings the end of the song with her, modern Scrooge, and like
right.
just bawling. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so effective.
Oh my gosh, I want to see
Yeah.
that so bad. Oh,
But yeah, so that was one of the things I thought was interesting is like, why wouldn't that be in the regular version? So I guess I always saw it on DVD, although I just didn't remember when the movie came out and seeing the promo, like I talked about last
mhm.
time, when they showed them all sitting around the table and doing the song at the table,
Uh-huh.
um,
The family
in
thing.
Crockett's home. Yeah. So I remember
Hmm.
seeing that like on a TV show or like a morning show or something where they had the Muppets and they acted out that thing. And I was like, oh, that looks so cool. But if I did see it in the theater, I don't remember ever not having that song. So maybe I didn't, but that doesn't sound like us. So I don't know. Anyways, so definitely, if you haven't seen the theatrical version, it has the breakup song. You need to see it. It's really good.
Oh my gosh,
It's a
I'm so
beautiful.
sad now.
Yeah. So, okay, other things about Muppet Christmas Carol, because yeah, this is the one we're talking the most about. Um, I love Michael Caine as Scrooge. I think
Yes.
he's a wonderful actor. He has a warmth and he has like a gravitas. He can be very serious and he can be playful. And there's something just very natural about him. And I love having him in there with the Muppets because he gives us a sense of like legitimacy. He makes it feel real.
Yeah.
And like it's totally normal that you have all these Muppets all throughout London.
Yeah.
And I love all the random stuff happening in the background. Or like someone's stealing the vegetables. Like, oh, someone's stealing me.
I love that.
Weird random stuff going on. And then there's the cat that was chasing Rizzo. And I love all the random stuff.
The chicken, because Gonzo, for people that don't know, Gonzo has a thing about chickens. And
He's the
they
chicken.
included it a couple of times. Like when
Yeah.
they were at the party at Fuzzy party and
Hmm.
he sees a chicken walk by and he's like, "Whoa."
Whoa.
When they're like crashing through the trees or
That's
whatever and there's suddenly like a chicken, he's like, "This is so and so." The rat's like, "Yeah."
well, I love that. Like, so Fuzzywigs,
Mhm.
it's so funny that that's really the name of his former employer. And then they
Yeah.
have Fozzie. And it's like,
Yeah.
how perfect is that for him to slide into that character and be that character? It's like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
And I love their younger Scrooge they got to play a younger Michael Caine. Perfect. Looked like
Mhm.
I could totally believe that's Michael Caine
Yeah.
20 something years ago, 40 years ago, whatever. And I love Kermit as Crackit. He's
Hmm.
he's great. He's perfect. He has that he embodied that same kind of energy that you got from him in the book. Like
Right.
he's a good guy, but he's willing to overlook Scrooge issues because that's his employer, and like he shows him a certain amount of difference and respect. And even
Yeah.
when he's not there, and his wife is kind of talking bad about him, it's like, honey, it's Christmas, and the children, we need to be setting a good example. Yeah,
Yeah.
he might not be the best guy, but he's my employer. Without him, we wouldn't have what we do have. So, like, I love that character. And there are people that are like that. They're able to see the positive even in the worst situations. And that's what his character represents. And you see that um, when the ghost of Christmas present takes him to his house and shows him his family and everything. And then when in the future, when they show that Tiny Tim has died, even then he's trying to find the positive in the situation
Hmm.
of losing one of his children. He's still comforting his family, even though he's totally just so heartbroken.
Yeah.
And he is just a great character. I feel like he's
Yeah.
a really likable and relatable character. And then that's who we all want to be. We want to be that kind of person that can find the good in all things. And it's somewhat like it's sort of beautiful to think that that's the guy that Scrooge works with is that guy. And that there's this really beautiful person he's working with every day. And he has no
Yeah.
idea how wonderful this person is until he gets like a glimpse into his life. And he's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize he had so little. I didn't realize he was dealing with so much. And he's still defending me when I'm not there. And he's no reason to defend me. I'm his crappy boss. But so, yeah, I love Piggy as the wife, of course. She's fantastic. She totally fit that character. Again, it was like they had almost like the perfect people for everything.
Yeah.
Um, and I love having the twins, little mini piggies, Belinda and Bettina. Like, I'm Belinda. I'm
Yeah.
Bettina. Anyways, that was funny. I liked that whole thing. And then I love I forget his name, Professor Melonhead and Beaker.
Oh yeah.
They were the
Charity.
the charity collectors. Yes. Oh my gosh. I thought they were perfect. They're
Yeah.
wonderful. So here's the thing. It's funny. Okay. I swear growing up, we were of the belief that after Scrooge tells them off and like shows them the door, and like Professor Melonhead's like, well, come on, Bigger, we won't take any more of Mr. Scrooge's time. And then Bigger goes, and like puts his hand up. We could have sworn he flipped him off. I am of the belief. My kid's like, no, we didn't flip him off. I'm like, no, I kind of like it if Beaker flipped him off. I'm like, I grew up thinking that I'm of the belief that Beaker flips him off, and I'm okay with that. The idea is too funny to me. So I'm like, you're like, whatever. But now if they watch it, they're like, they giggle at that part because they know what I'm thinking. You're like,
Right.
yeah. Um,
I'll never be able to not see that now.
yeah. Okay. What are what are things that you liked about
So,
the movie?
so I loved, um, I agree with you. Michael Caine, perfect. He was the perfect. And I kind of mentioned this before, but the concept that like he played it as as torn as I felt like it was. Like when you're in the book, you kind of get this sense that he's like I'm not a bad guy, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And then as he goes along and he sees more and more and he's like, "Oh my gosh,
Maybe I am.
I'm a I'm a bad guy." And by Christmas present, he's like, "I get it. I get what's happening. I just be done now? Repentance over kind of a thing." And
Mm-hmm.
so when he goes to the third ghost, he's like, "What do you got for me? I'm ready. I'm ready to go through your
Oh, sure.
trial."
I don't need to
Let's
know how horrible my future is going to be or
yeah.
going to happen.
And and I felt like in the movie he did a lot of that too, where he was like, "This is not me being a bad person. This is you guys being obnoxious." And then by the time he's done with Christmas Past, he's like, "I have made some poor choices." And he's already like he's like, can we just be done now, maybe? And they're like, "Nope, you get to deal with all of it. You're taking this whole journey,
Yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
know? And I think he played that so well. Like I said, he wanted to have friends. He wanted to be loved. You know,
He didn't
he's
know how for the most part. He wasn't good
yeah,
at it. And then it just became easier for him to isolate himself, and that's what
yeah.
he did. And I can identify a lot with that, as I know I'm an introvert extrovert. Sometimes I seem like an extrovert to some people, but I'm really an introvert. Anyways, I naturally don't make friends easily. I don't know what to say, and sometimes I'll say things that offend people without meaning to. And like, I'm not a bad person, but I can see how other people, not knowing these things about me, might think I'm just a big jerk. Oh, what a rude person, blah, blah. But like, if they knew me, they know I have a big heart and I'm, the most loyal person in the world. But, you know, it's easy when you're awkward with people and you're not comfortable, you're not naturally a people person. It's all too easy to just recluse into yourself and to be like, I'm just not going to do that. It's easier to be antisocial than to go through all the extra work and try to get people to understand that this is just me. I'm just different.
Yeah.
And that not everybody's naturally good at talking to people. And the people that are just naturally friendly, I'm like, who are you? Like it's just like a foreign language to me. I'm like, how? And my own daughter, she's 6, and she just goes in any place and she makes friends with everybody there. And instantly everybody's her sister or her friend. And I'm like, who are you? How are you sprung from me? Because I was never social, ever, ever. So yeah, I can relate to Scrooge in that I don't think of myself as a bad person, but I'm sure I've said or done things in the past that if shown to me from the perspective of the other person, I'd be like mortified how I affected them or how I made them feel,
Yeah.
you know? And I
Yeah.
think it's true for most people. Like we don't know how we affect people.
Yeah. So something that I was thinking about it when I was watching this one, the Muppet one, is that most of us are not Scrooge necessarily, and most of us are not Bob Cratchit as much as we might think we are. Most of us are other. And how many of those others
Maybe we're Fred,
missed it?
nephew Fred.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would
like
like to think I'm at
he's
least the
12,
nephew.
but he does kind of make fun of his uncle when he's not there.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, how many of us just see somebody and write them off? Oh my gosh, he's a jerk.
Yeah.
Like I probably do. I've got so many stories of people that I'm like, oh my gosh, when I actually spent some time with them, they're wonderful, or whatever. And I'm like, why did I waste so much time assuming they hated me or something?
Well, our entire friendships started off with a mutual desire to hate each other for no particular
For
reason.
no reason? Yeah, yeah. That's a weird one.
That's one of my favorite stories ever. We're like, we looked around the room and the choir and we're like, yeah, I hate you. I don't know
And
why.
I was just kind of like, why is this girl staring at me? She must be a stuck-up little.
Yeah. I don't know
Yep.
why I chose you either. I just like that one. Like you were something. You stuck out.
There's something about her. It's like
Yeah.
the boys in like elementary school when they like a girl and then they don't know how to process that. And so they give her all the negative attention, like
Beat her
poking
up.
her back and stuff. One of these days, they're gonna realize that they like you. And you're like, I don't want that guy. He's a jerk that pulled my hair.
Weirdo. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I am very good in front of an audience. I was kind of shy as a kid, like little. And so my mom was always like, oh, well, maybe you don't have to talk to them. But it's like she put me in dance class. And so I could get up in front of a huge audience and be like, you know, hey, look at me. I did drama and choir and I stuck to dance for a long time. I can do all of that. And then if I'm in a small group of people, like if I'm at a party or whatever, I'm a wallflower unless I'm like entertaining people, I start to tell a story and everybody's laughing and it feels like sometimes I come off as fake, which I feel like some of the interpretations of the nephew sometimes come off as like he's just like, "Hey, I want everybody to like me. I'm going to do whatever silly thing that, let's play games or whatever," and trying to like entertain the masses.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm just like, look at me, I want the attention, but I don't know how to just sit down and have a conversation until I have like a deep connection with you already.
Hmm.
And so my conversations tend to be awkward and weird. There's probably people watching this who have been like, "Yep, you're,
I've been there.
you're weird."
Yeah. Like,
Because I'll sit there and I'm like, "Oh, you do choir and I do choir. That's a thing we can talk about." And then I'll just keep talking about choir as if it's like the thing that I love most in life. And I'm like, it's just a thing that I know that we have in common. And I don't
talk
feel
about.
ready to jump into something deeper with, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things that's weird about social interactions is that it's sort of assumed that we all understand the rules, that like what's appropriate to say and what's not. And your appropriate to say and my appropriate to say are completely different things. Because like I feel like almost everything is appropriate to say. That like I would like to have real conversations with people. I don't want the pleasantries. I want to be like, oh, hi, blah, blah, blah. I want to talk about like if I had a bad day, I want to say I had a crappy day and I want to tell you about it. And like I'll give you a whole story about it because I turn everything into a story, writer, naturally. I can make anything a story.
sure.
And if you were there for it, then you'd be like, oh, okay, we're going to have the conversation. And then you can tell me whatever you want to tell me. Like, I want to hear your life story. I want to hear your weird random story about going to the grocery store from the guy that almost hit you. Like, I love that stuff. I want a real conversation. I don't want to just like, yeah, so how are the kids? Oh, that's great. Nice. Yeah, that's just not me. I want to jump right into the deeper conversations, and that's often uncomfortable for some people. Like they don't want to do that. And that like jarring for them where they feel like you're just overbearing or rude, or they're just like, what a weird person just talking about this stuff. Or like I come off as super negative because I will talk about not being happy about something because I don't
Hmm.
consider it a sin to have negative feelings or emotions. I feel like it's a sin to not express it and not deal with it in a healthy
Right.
manner. For some people feel like talking about it at all is unhealthy. Like you got to suppress it all down. And
Right.
sorry, I disagree. I can't do that. So yeah, everybody's
Yeah.
different. So I could totally understand being Scrooge and being awkward and being different and kind of taking that and going, you know what? And I get the impression that he's an orphan. Is he an orphan? I don't
Well, so
think
his
he fully
so
said.
his father didn't ever like him because his mother died giving birth to him.
Oh, I must have forgot that.
That's so it's just a super brief when it's Christmas past,
Yeah.
his father
Why
and
he doesn't go home.
sister, yeah, they make just a super brief, like he mentions it. He's talking to the ghost of Christmas past and he mentions it briefly. You see a little bit of interaction with like father says you can come home. Also, you're going to start working, like
Yeah.
just boom and he's gone and that's it. But yeah, so he is essentially on his own. And he loves his sister, which is she has imbued this like sense of cherishing Uncle Scrooge, right? In the nephew. And so he's like, "You know what? I don't get it, but my mother is a saint and she loved him. So
Yeah.
I can't ever not love him." You know what I mean? Like maybe I just identify with the nephew. That's it. You got Scrooge, I got the nephew.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I liked when I was kind of thinking about it this last time that the story is don't let greed and avarice get in your way of living your life, right?
Hmm.
But for some of us also need the story of don't just write those people off. Look what they were missing by just writing Scrooge off. And look what he was missing by equally writing them off. But like
Yeah.
once they let him in and once he
Yeah.
let them in, let him in, all of their lives were enriched.
Yeah.
That was my like epiphany that probably has already been there since the beginning. I'm sure Dickens fully intended us to see it from all sides. That's why he wrote all sides in,
Hmm.
but it came to me just this time. So,
Yeah. I think that's true. I think for me, I saw it more of a don't be so set in your ways that you don't go out of your comfort zone to get to know people, to grow and to try to do better. That just because you may not be good around people doesn't mean you just give up. They're like, oh,
yeah.
I'm not good at it. I'm not going to try. And it is so easy to do. It is so easy to just be like, you know what? It is just easier not to go, to not to be the thing and not feel awkward. And
Hmm.
I know I do it. I do it even now. Like, I don't like Texas. I'm not making friends here. And it's been hard, but it is so much easier just not to go to church. And I love church. So the fact that I don't want to go, it's not because they're mean people or anything. It's just that we're invisible. And New York, like they automatically like just accepts you and welcomes you in because any new family that came in, they did that.
Hmm.
And here it's different because there's so many new people all the time that they can't even keep track, like who's new and who's
Yeah.
not. And it's just for some reason there's just no connection. So at the same time, I have to remember I got to be an example to my kids, and I've got to teach them how to put themselves out there and how to make friends and not to just give in to what's easy and not to stay in your comfort zone. You got to push yourself.
Hmm.
And that's one thing that's nice about being a parent is like, well, I have to do this for my kids.
Right.
I may not be good at being social, but I have to try to show them how to be social. So I'm going to be an example. So in that way, I feel like crack it is where it's like, okay, I'm not perfect, but I have to be a good example for my kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I've said it before, but I think having kids or having I know not everybody has kids. For me, having kids has made me such a better person. I feel like generally having children often makes you
If you're into
better.
the experience, if you're into the makeover that it creates in your soul,
Yeah.
and yes, I think that it makes you a
But
good person.
yeah, but relationships generally, I think because it's such a unique to each of us relationship with our children. I have very different relationships with all of my children and all of them um affect me in such an intimate way, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But having those relationships, whether it's children or spouse or just your
Mhm.
siblings or like in Scrooge's case, like he missed the spouse. He doesn't have the children, but he has a nephew. He has Cratchit's kids.
Yeah.
that he learns to cherish, that he
Eventually
well
adopt.
actually he learns that he already cherishes,
Yeah.
like, and and having those relationships makes you a better person, but you have to be willing to have those relationships. He had a nephew the whole time. He had Cratchit working with him for however long,
Yeah.
like presumably years and years and years, right?
Yeah.
He had these people in his life, and he not only didn't make the effort, like you were saying, but he kind of fought against any of their efforts,
Yeah.
almost as like a weird protection or
Yeah.
something.
It's a preemptive rejection,
Yeah,
rejecting them before they can reject you.
right.
Yeah.
And like sometimes I read it as disregard. He just disregarded humanity, which is kind of something that they mentioned that Marley did. Marley disregarded humanity, right?
Hmm.
And I think with Scrooge, it seems to be more of a dad doesn't love me, you know,
You expect anybody else to, and your own parents
nobody
doesn't.
nobody at school loved me, or he's like, these were my friends. But then you see him not with his friends. All of his friends are running around and playing and whatever outside the schoolyard, in the schoolyard, and
Yeah.
he's still inside by himself. And I kind of do that.
Mhm.
Everyone that I remember, even moderately fondly, I'll be like, oh yeah, my friend so and so, when I'm telling a story to my kids. And then I'm like, we never actually had any interaction except that one story that I just told them. But in my memory, it's
Friendship enough.
easy to just say, my friends, you know? But when I was there, maybe I didn't consider them a friend, or maybe they didn't consider me a friend.
Yeah.
And that's what you see with him. He felt kind of rejected since the beginning, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
And even his sister who loved him, like she loved him. Also, it's kind of hinted at that she got married. Yeah, look, you're becoming a woman. And she's like, yep, married, gone,
Yeah.
you know? And so of course he chose the career that wasn't going anywhere. It's not leaving him, it's not rejecting him,
No.
and it was a safety. Like I see that now, kind of the same thing. Like I am perfectly fine standing in front of an audience and pretending to be someone else, or singing a song. I There are songs that like make me like weep every time I sing them.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I will be that vulnerable in front of people. And if my voice wavers or whatever, it's because of the emotion, and I'm not embarrassed because here I am giving it to you. But
Hmm.
then to like I can talk to a camera, and to my best friend or whatever, like I can do that. I don't know that I would have this conversation with, the lady who sits next to me at church or something. You know what I mean? Like, I would like to think that maybe I could.
Yeah, and it's funny when you do meet somebody that's similar to you and they get your conversation style and like you just click with somebody. That's
Mhm.
awesome. I will never understand how people can be friends with everybody, like how they can just have a natural conversation with everyone. I've never been able to do it, but I respect the people that can and
Mhm.
that are able just to naturally, people just naturally gravitate to them. And I feel like, in a way, Christmas Present was kind of that personality,
Mhm.
especially in the Muppets movie. And I think it helped bring out that energy out of Scrooge. It was like instantly Scrooge liked him. And he's
Yeah.
like, I don't instantly like anybody, but I like this guy. Like,
Yeah.
had him laughing, he had him like, he made him feel welcomed. And you felt like he became friends with this guy. And he's like, I just met you, but I feel like we're really good friends. And like, he was able to loosen up around him.
Yeah.
I think we all need a person like that in our lives.
Yeah.
And when you find that, it's just invaluable.
So I, I loved kind of the different personalities of each of the of each of the ghosts, how the ghosts of Christmas past in the book especially, and sometimes in the different adaptations, depending on which one it is, kind of has almost like a, hey, buddy, listen, I don't really care. I'm doing my job, you know?
It's not my
Like when he's like, oh, this is a curious cap or whatever, and they're like, excuse me, you would extinguish my light? And he's like, I didn't know. And they're like, okay, whatever. Let's go. You know, it
yeah.
kind of has like a almost a blasé, like, let's just do this thing, you know. When he's like, oh, why are you showing me all these awful things or whatever? And it says something to the effect of, you know, these are your memories, that they are what they are. Don't blame me, you know,
Yeah.
kind of has like an attitude of like, this is what you get, bud. Move along, you know. And then Christmas present, I love that his statement is come in and know me better, man. You know,
Yeah.
like, but like you're saying, like he's just that personality. Like walks into a room, takes up all the space in it, and nobody can like they even had him literally take up all the space. He was this giant like person. And there are those personalities that they just come in and they are the party and you don't mind. Like
Yeah.
they're not trying to entertain. Like I sometimes feel like I need to step back because I step in and I'm like, "Oh, I don't have a friend here. I don't really hey, everybody. Make you
I'm
laugh or
you.
something, you know?" And
Yeah.
then I have a moment that I'm like, "Chill. I don't have to say the most entertaining story or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I can let somebody else talk and people don't necessarily just all turn away from me. I have had those experiences though, where like I'm like, hey, blah, 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 and I say some funny thing, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's so funny. And then like the circle closes, like somebody steps and they're like, oh, did you see? And suddenly I'm like outside the circle.
You're like, oh,
And I'm like,
that was supposed to be an icebreaker.
yeah, like, okay, I'm gonna go away. You
Wow.
know, I even now, I mean, I'm 40 years old and I still have that happen to where like I'm in a circle of people and I'm not really contributing. And so they'll say something that I'm like, oh yeah, I was there for that. And I'll say something that I think is contributing. And then someone will be like, oh, by the way, did you see? And all of a sudden I realize like the shoulders went like this. You know what I mean?
We're just,
Like the shoulders that were here are like this now. And I'm like,
oh.
okay, I'm just gonna go get a
Mhm.
drink or something. Like, you know.
Yeah. Uh,
So I get that kind of an easy way to be like, got it. You don't want me, then next time I'm just not gonna come to the party. You know?
yeah. And
But
like, you never really know what you say and do that can like put somebody off or make somebody feel uncomfortable. And like, there are things that I know I've said that were not meant negatively at all, that were taken negatively by someone and they held it against me for like long periods of time. And I had to hear about it years later from somebody else. And I'm like, dude, why didn't you just tell me, hey, what do you mean by that? That's offensive. Like, I'm totally offended. They told me right then we could have fixed it, like
right.
in that moment. But people don't do that. It's
Yeah.
weird to me because I would totally do that. But I'm weird, apparently. This isn't normal. But yeah, you never know. And I think that's another thing I liked about the Ghost of Christmas Present. In the book, they even talked about how like he was able to fit any space.
Mm-hmm.
He became larger or smaller based on where he needed to be because he fit the situation, he fit the people around him,
Mm-hmm.
situation around him. And I think that was again part of his personality of what the joy and like the sense of community and happiness that you could have.
Mm-hmm.
Scrooge could have. He could be that person. And it might sound kind of weird, but I kind of see the Ghost of Christmas Present as sort of the Jesus character.
Yeah.
That's kind of a Jesus film about him to me, which
Yeah.
would be the one that would accept everybody and be able to fit around everyone
Yeah.
and be there for everybody.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's what I was saying with that song, this in the Muppet one. Um, anywhere that you feel love, it feels like Christmas.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of that same thing. Like
Hmm.
if you are religious, especially if you are Christian, then Christmas, I mean, people can get into the weeds of, oh, well, was this date accurate? Or, oh, well, that's a pagan, we have our Christmas trees,
Hmm.
that's whatever.
You get
Anywhere that
nitpicky in
you
there.
feel love, it feels like Christmas. Like that's the
Mhm.
message, like don't worry about it. Somebody does something in a manner that is not the way that you do it. Give
It-
them a little grace
It's okay.
and feel the love. You know what I mean? Like that's that's
Yeah.
that's the message of Christmas present. And in the end, he gets old and Scrooge is like, "Oh, you're aging. Is a spirit's life so short?" And he's like, "Ah, it depends on the spirit." But yeah, because you missed it, you know, Christmas present, the present doesn't remain all the time. The present becomes the past. What
Yeah.
you are doing in the present is going to be you are building your past.
Hmm.
Are you going to build more memories that you then are angry if someone shows you?
Yeah.
Or are you going to live in the present and know me better, man? Like that.
That's the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's hard to always do. I think it's a very powerful thing to say that the present becomes the past and you're currently making your memories right here, right now. And I think that's hard to think of life that way, that it's not just about being in the moment, but this moment will be a memory very soon. How are you going to look back on that?
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, the Ghost of Christmas Future. Sorry, I'm gonna say future or present, and I was like, what? No. Um, yeah, the Ghost of Christmas Future is always represented in some way like a Grim Reaper or
Hmm.
a kind of death-like character, and very scary and ominous. And he says very little; he just points, and it's How do you feel about that as that character in general?
So I always kind of like, I get the concept because Scrooge's future right now looks grim. That's why it
Yeah.
is a Grim Reaper. Like, like I get it. Um, I kind of liked, so I talked about Animaniacs before, and he like starts out as you're like Thundersprout, and he is this like creepy, and then it becomes Yakko, the older one, the
Yeah.
the bigger one anyway.
Hmm.
Um, it becomes him, and he sings this whole like what we were talking about MGM. Oh yeah, with the
Wizard of Oz.
Dorothy. Wizard of Oz with the
Mhm.
Dorothy one. But yeah, and it has like the like big MGM staircase style like crooner type song. And I
Mhm.
was like, this is weird because this is the Ghost of Future the Ghost of Christmas Future or whatever that is. And he's supposed to be like this grim, and his message is still grim. His message is still you're gonna die unremembered except where you were unloved. Like you will only be remembered for being unloved. It was still a grim message, but
Mhm.
it was like put forward in this like swanky kind of way. And I was like, it's funny and it's super entertaining, but it didn't fit as much as I always thought like his present isn't like Christmas present. Like his current Scrooge's present does not reflect the spirit of Christmas present.
Mm.
So then why did his future reflect
His
like why was it a grim it's a grim future, so it's a grim ghost. It seemed weird to me, but it actually ended up making a lot more sense than doing it a different way
Yeah.
because he needed to he needed that. He needed that
He
trial.
needed to be scared to death.
Yeah.
Scared of it. He needed to be terrified.
Yeah. Which is weird because, not weird, but at first I was like, he doesn't need to be scared anymore, though. He was already there. Like, he was like, hey, you're the guy of my future, huh? Look, I get it, bud. I am ready to change my ways.
Yeah.
And the ghost is like, not
Was
yet.
it really like if they had stopped with the Ghost of Christmas Past and like not done the present or the future, how long do you think his reformation would have lasted?
See, and that's exactly the question because I see that happen all the time. People do it with diets, people do it with, being more social, and so they go to a social thing,
Well, I
people,
tried. That was
hey,
it.
I tried. I reached out to someone and they never texted me back.
Yeah. And how many of us
Great.
are guilty of that?
Yeah. And kind of the concept that he was told in the beginning, he would be visited by three ghosts. You're going to have to take all these steps.
Yes.
You know, you have to learn all the lessons. It has to shake your soul. Even if you think you get it right now,
Hmm.
just wait.
You don't. You don't yet.
Yeah.
Because you need to get like the regret of the past. You need to get the joy of what the present could be. And you need to understand the fear of what the future could be.
Yeah.
And so he needed all of that to be able
Hmm.
to fully change and to be, really mean it.
Hmm.
Because if they just stopped with the first ghost or the second ghost, how like genuine would that change have actually been? How long would it have lasted? So,
Right.
and the point of this was to like change him utterly and completely, to
Yeah.
save him, to save
I
his.
don't, yeah. I don't remember if it's Marley or if it's the first go the Christmas past, but one of them says like I've come oh the Christmas past. She says I've come for your welfare. And he's like, "Well,
But
what some could say a good night's sleep is for my welfare." And they're like, "Okay, for your salvation or something, like for more than just your body, kind of a thing."
yeah,
That's what it's all about.
and sometimes it's hard to remember that our body, though important and like this life is important, it's just a part of the big picture.
Hmm.
Especially, for us that believe in the life after death and all that, it's just a part of the story.
Yeah.
There's more to it. So
Yeah.
if we get too focused on this little part, this little thing happening right here, this life, and we don't think about the big picture, about what it all means, the grand scheme of things, we sort of lose the meaning and the purpose of everything. Anyways, I think we've discussed the the movies and the books pretty well. Um, so that's Christmas Carol. Unless there's anything else you want to add,
I can keep talking forever, but I think we basically
I,
covered
I think
everything.
I think we covered it. Okay, so what are we going to be talking about next time? So it's your turn to pick.
Yes. So, I do want to put it out there that we have not been doing too many. I don't know if we've done any author
Interviews?
things this season,
We haven't yet.
but we do have at least one and possibly two in the works. But let's get through the holidays first.
Okay.
And we'll figure it out then. As for books, the next one that I want to do, so on our website, paperbackflix.com, um there's a spot on there where you can recommend books with film adaptations. And I hear it, I read it. We have several people that have mentioned like we'll do like one or two of a series and they want to see us do the whole series. I'm not prepared to do a whole series, dudes. I don't have it in me right now. But one that several people have mentioned, I have never read it, I have never seen it, I have never cared about it. Holes.
Holes.
So many people have been recommending it on the site, in person.
Oh, okay.
Everyone loves this book and or movie.
Okay. I've seen the
And
movie.
what?
I've seen the movie.
Oh, I have not. I don't know anything about it. Something about owls and holes, right?
Is it the same one I'm thinking of? I don't know. Who's the author? So that like verify who the author is so we can like be sure we're talking
I
about.
don't know. I know the movie has Shia LaBeouf.
Yes.
Does
Okay.
that help you?
That's the
Okay.
one.
I don't remember who suggested it first, but somebody sent it in and I was like, okay, yeah, maybe. And then, people are like, you love Princess Bride, do that one and whatever. And then somebody else said holes, and then somebody that I was talking to said holes. I'm like, maybe I should just maybe I should just do it. So
Okay.
I have no idea what we're in for. Maybe
Okay.
holes.
I have some idea. Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds good. So for Paperback Fix, I am Ruth Craddock.
I'm Rae Davidson.
And next time we will read slash watch Holes by whoever that's by. We'll find out. And we'll talk about that. So we'll see you next time.